Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media. The time is 8:55, and we'll be looking into Gaza now, Palestine, where the discovery of a mass grave inside the Nasir Medical Complex in Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip this week has been met with grief and horror from Palestinians and has drawn condemnation from the United Nations and calls for a transparent and credible investigation. If you haven't heard, more than 300 bodies have been uncovered so far from the hospital after Israeli forces withdrew on April the 7th. The UN Humanitarian Rights Council on Tuesday said more bodies were found at Gaza City's Al-Shifa Hospital, the enclave's largest health facility, which the rights body said was an empty shell after a 2-week Israeli siege ended there on April the 1st. Joining us right now, based out in Bethlehem, is Baha. Baha, he's an activist, an educator based in Palestine, Baha Hilo. Baha, welcome to Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for joining us.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Silaylo.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
No, definitely. Appreciate you giving us your time during these, very, very difficult circumstances. First and foremost, can you, describe your initial reaction to the discovery of these mass graves at the Nasir Medical Complex in Khan Yunis, and also, how the local community and the people of Gaza in general, from the conversations that you have been affected by this revelation, and the knowing and understanding. Just the amount of trauma and the amount of bereavement and siege that they've been subjected to by Israeli occupying forces.
Let me put it this way: the atrocity is still going on. Is the uncovering of mass graves is something that what people were warning about as though the state of Israel was murdering those people. Many families or family members and relatives of those that were found murdered expressed concerns that the state of Israel is slaughtering patients in Al-Nasr hospital because they did that before in Shifa hospital and they got away with it. They did that before in Mahmadani hospital and they got away with it. So it's just another Israeli crime that is viewed as just another one of those crimes that Palestinians in Gaza have been subjected to since the beginning of the genocide. The families, the families of the murdered Palestinians and the bodies were found, do not have time to actually start mourning. They do not have time to actually. They do not have time to deal with this atrocity because they are desperate, surviving each and every day of the ongoing genocide for 6 months. I can tell you, people are exhausted. People are have been put on a survival mode for so on. So this kind of new discovery is something that the Palestinians themselves in Gaza have been telling us about it while it's happening. Now the call for the investigation and shedding a light on this particular atrocity is being treated in the exact same way as each and every single atrocity committed by Israeli criminals. Which instead of calling upon Israeli government to hand over the criminals who committed this crime, we call for an investigation of an Israeli crime. And when we call for an investigation, we give the chance for those Israeli criminals to get away with this crime. Every single criminal that participated in the murder of the bodies that were found in this particular mass grave in Khan Yunis, every is recorded. The Israeli government or the Israeli army has the data, the visual data, the names, the ranks of each and every single criminal that participated in in this atrocity. So we do not need investigation. We need like handing out those criminals. Of course, like when you invite a criminal, when you give the criminal a chance, and by telling them like, we are investigating this conduct, that's the end of the story. Once again, I look at it in the context of Israel's criminal behavior that have been conducted in Palestine for more than 75 years. The precedent of committing atrocities and then getting away with it goes through investigation. Like if you read about one of the most famous atrocities committed by the founders of the State of Israel in a small village called Deir Yassin, instead of demanding that the criminals that murdered those civilians in the community and eliminated almost everyone, instead of demanding that those criminals need to be handed, there was a call for investigation, and each and every one of those criminals have died peacefully in their beds. And the criminals that committed the crime in Nasser Hospital, or every single Israeli criminal that participated in the genocide and atrocities, if things go on according to the records, they will never get a chance to face justice. Another thing, like, this is the insensitivity of international community, especially those who might who claim that they are conducting themselves from a good ethical place. When you demand when you demand investigation rather than accountability and justice, you throw the family of the murdered Palestinian or the Palestinian victim in a place where they have to relive the trauma over and over and over and over again as long as that investigation is going on. The outcome of the investigation has never been about handing over an Israeli criminal to justice. So instead of focusing on the investigation of the crime, the data is there. The names of the criminals are there. Every single Israeli soldier that was involved in this atrocity in a Nasser hospital is recorded, has a name, has a rank, and so on. The demand should be like for the State of Israel to hand over all that data and then hand over those criminals to a court that can actually sentence them for the atrocities they are committing. When we demand investigation, just like imagine like the memory of the atrocity of the Sharpeville massacre is still present up until today and will stay present. It's exactly like demanding the apartheid regime to conduct an investigation of that massacre. And then when they, like, actually apartheid authorities investigated the massacre and they found no wrongdoings with every single criminal that was responsible for murdering the protesters. So it goes in the exact same way. Like when crime happens, it's time for justice. It's not time for investigation. But investigation has always been used as an alternative to justice. And like I do not know of a situation where an Israeli criminal was actually held accountable and sentenced for any crime that they committed. So criminal behavior, genocide is not an invitation for investigation. Genocide is an invitation for handing over every single member responsible, took part in that genocide, to responsible authorities to get them to face justice.
I think what's really concerning for me, because the issue of mass graves being found, it's not something that's new. In 2012 Bosnia Herzegovina, we remember mass graves are found there, and I think the most recent one, 2022 in Ukraine, mass graves are found, and Russia was immediately held accountable for it. And there was a very swift response, from international bodies like the ICC, to bring, those perpetrators accountable. But it doesn't seem the case with Israel. The UN is urging for an investigation when the UN themselves are an overseeing body of the ICC and the ICJ. So it's like, why does it seem like when it comes to Palestine, the issue of justice is a different one, but in Ukraine in 2012, it was less than a month, after those mass graves were found, and then just like that, there were sanctions against the state of Russia, and it was all over the news, and the soldiers and the commanders that were responsible for it were named, shamed, and they were made accountable for those
And
actions.
rightly so.
Yeah,
And rightly so.
why do you think it's such a different story, when it comes to Palestine, when it comes to the actions of the United Nations, the ICC and the ICJ, in making sure that Israeli occupying forces are held accountable?
Why is like the answer is rooted in racism. Like it took the entire world 5 days of Russian attacks on Ukraine to cut Russia out of everything. Whether it's sport or the World Monetary Fund, or to cut Russia completely. And now we are not talking about 5 days of genocide. Now we are getting into the 7th month of ongoing genocide. We are being asking for the international community, the International Court of Justice is, investigating genocide as genocide is going on. Now, why there is a norm that was established in the international community as early as of May 1948, which is like the state of Israel. All what it needs to provide us with is their justifications and explanation of criminal behavior, and that's enough. You see it, like you can read reports like for every single Israeli crime carried out in Palestine from 1948 up until today. The constant thing, the common thing that is happening is that when we demand Israel to investigate itself, that's enough. Why? It's pure racism. The state of Israel is a criminal regime that is backed by westernized powers and westernized governments. Like for them to hold the state of Israel accountable is betrayal to their racist norms, betrayal to their racist behavior, betrayal to their colonial past, betrayal to what they themselves as Western politicians say, betrayal to like their values. The state of Israel shares common values with the United States. So the answer for why is rooted in racism. Now, when I ask a racist politician, a defender of Israeli criminal behavior, whether it's in Germany, the United States, Canada, and so on, to give me a different version that does not include racism, then they are spinning the facts. Up until today, like I do not know if you pay attention to press releases coming from the White House every single day during this genocide, is that we are asking our Israeli partners to conduct an investigation, and we're waiting for the facts.
That's very hypocritical. Very, very hypocritical.
That's racist, dear. Like hypocrisy is practiced behavior in the street. There is no hypocrisy when it comes to politics. There is racism, support and defense of criminal behavior, or exposure of criminal behavior. We don't have that. Like we don't have that because the westernized world will continue to provide support for the state of Israel, not because of its criminal behavior, but despite of its criminal behavior. So once again, those calls for investigating the obvious is only a chance to provide protection for the criminals who conduct those obvious crimes, and to enable them to go on and on and on with it. And Israeli criminals did not fail, Western leaders. They do exactly that. Like we will never be held responsible for murdering one Palestinian, and we will not be held responsible for murdering more than 34,000 people and keeping more than 30,000 victims under the rubble of their own homes.
Mm, mm. And I think
So, like, once again, like,
yes,
go ahead.
I think for me it's very very nonsensical for the US government to ask the state of Israel to investigate themselves, basically being judge, jury, and executioner
Mhm.
of their own case. And coming back to the US government, just a few days after that story broke out, we heard about that 26 billion aid that
Mhm.
is going to be delivered
Mhm.
to the state of Israel, and
Mhm.
all kinds of
Mhm.
armaments.
Yeah.
Are we still in a place where we have to ask questions regarding the moral, the moral compass of the United States of
No, no,
America?
no,
Because
no. It's
it
very
seems
obvious.
they've drawn the line in the sand. They've said this is where we stand. We're going to be
Mhm.
funding this genocidal machinery. And
Mhm.
don't you think it's now done? The world needs to stop saying, America, hold Israeli occupying forces accountable, hold Netanyahu accountable. Don't you think that that's expired? We don't have to do that anymore. They've chosen a side. They are a sugar daddy, if you want to say, to the Israeli occupying
Man, like,
forces.
do not like like the United States of America sponsors the criminal behavior of the state of Israel as a norm, as a habit. Like the person they refer to as Genocide Joe now, he was quoted like so many times. Like, if there was no Israel, the United States would have to create an Israel. Like, if there is no savage apartheid regime in Palestine being created, like, it's the responsibility of the United States of America to create such a criminal regime. So, like, that's his own language. So I think the United States of America is honoring its criminal policy throughout the world. You
Mm,
know, so, like, there is some kind of a competition sometimes that happens between the United States and Israel, and, like, who can get away with more murder. Like, the United States of America, through its army, or the army of the United States of America, have conducted, you know, uh, enough atrocities since the Second World War, which is like resulted on a holocaust of mass murder throughout the world. So, like, the behavior, the conduct of Israeli criminals in Palestine, the does not contradict American, like, wars and slaughtering of people throughout the world. And you hear that, like, Israeli criminals use the United States criminal behavior as a way to justify their own criminal behavior.
mm,
Like, don't criticize us because you did Hiroshima. Don't criticize us because you murdered 1 million people in Iraq. Don't criticize. So, like, it's in a way that there is nothing that the state of Israel is doing in terms of criminal behavior that contradicts American foreign policy in murdering people in different parts of the world. So, like, they can or they can't say whatever. No, like, defenders of criminals are shameless.
mm,
There is not going to be a day where, like, supporters of Israeli criminal behavior that are coming from the United States, there will never be a day that come when they will be saying, "Oh, we are supporting Israeli criminal behavior because we are racist and we love to see brown people being murdered." They're
mm,
not going to say that. The reason, like, the you had, like, an immediate reaction to the Russian aggression in Ukraine, while you don't even have any kind of, like, you don't even think of holding the state of Israel responsible for its genocide, and you use your veto power every single time Palestinians have, like, minimum access to justice. That's, like, simply because we are not white.
mm,
Like, I do not want to complain. Now, when I bring in uh, an American expert to explain it to us, and it's like they're not going to say, like, yeah, we are okay with murder of Palestinians because we've been okay with it since the time of Harry Truman. back in 1948, and we've been supplying Israeli criminals with the means of maintaining their crime. Now, the disgusting, like something that is more disgusting that you you can pay attention to, is that the United States of America is supplying the state of Israel with billions of dollars of worth of weaponry and bombs, and then supplying Palestinians with some kind of food.
Mm.
To
Mm.
like in what world is this kind of psychotic behavior, this kind of like mad behavior, in what kind of world do we live, to think that supplying a criminal with means of murder, while supplying the victims with means of survival, and in what world is that like viewed as a form of civility? In what world is like you have like a defender of the of Israeli criminal behavior, who just like stands with all the arrogance that a white savage can have, telling you like, who did more for the welfare of the Palestinians than America? It's like,
Really?
what, like, you support the elimination of Palestinians over the past 75 years, and you consider that to be like doing them something in their favor. So in the end of the day, like Western politicians who stand in support of Israeli criminal behavior, Western governments who will never ever demand that Israel hands over one criminal to face justice, that's kind of uh, that's kind of like the common behavior we have, and the precedent was rooted in allowing the Israeli criminals to get away with their crime back in 1948, continues up until today. Like, I can give you so many examples of the exact same thing. There is a Zionist judge that was brought from the south of Africa under the name like Richard Goldstone.
Mm-hmm.
He came in like in the peak of Israeli apartheid practices, and he was in denial of. He did an investigation of Israeli apartheid while Israeli apartheid is being conducted. It's still being conducted, and he didn't find Israeli atrocities committed against Palestinians to qualify to the crime of apartheid. So, like, investigating obvious criminal behavior is giving a chance for the criminal to go on maintaining their criminal behavior.
And just lastly, Brother Baha, before I let you go, what's the latest regarding the bodies? Have they been identified? Have some of them been given proper burials? What do you know? What do we know with that situation right now?
That situation, like, there are many bodies that will go unidentified because either family members are far away from those graves, or because Israeli criminals have stolen so many organs. Like, they change like the obvious, let's say, features of so many of the people after murdering them. So they are making it very difficult for Palestinian families to identify dead bodies. Also, like, don't forget that so many bodies are in pieces. So if you are, as a family member, if you are not there when your brother or sister or mother or son or daughter is being murdered, there's not a good chance for you to do so, to identify it in an obvious way. Now, like, the access to like DNA testing and figuring out like who is who and who's a relative of who, like, it's unthinkable right now because we're not allowed to have that. It's one of the so many things we're not allowed to have in Gaza. So it's like, it's nearly impossible for so many families to identify bodies. If those bodies were ripped of their clothes and so on, it's one thing. Because many people identify their relatives based on clothes.
Mm-hmm.
If you did not write your name on your arm, or on your hand, uh, like there is no way to identify who is who is who. And at the end of the day, there's like a name lists of people who were in the hospital, and Israeli criminals like murdered patients, they murdered doctors, they murdered administratives. I do not know if the data of the names of everybody that was in Al Nasser hospital around that time are still recorded, because this is also one way or another. Also,
Mm.
please remember that the atrocity is going on. Asking
Yeah.
Palestinians if they could define this or that, like usually you define your losses
After they happened.
after the end. Like
Mm.
asking Palestinians to identify their losses in Gaza right now
Mm.
is like asking somebody to identify his losses while his house is being on fire.
Mm. Mm.
You
No,
need the
definitely,
fire to
definitely.
come to an end in order for each and every one of us. It will happen. Like we still, like we we still have not had a chance to
Mm.
actually count our losses in order to start the mourning process of even like Palestinians that were murdered throughout the past 75 years. But we need an end of this savagery in order to be able to count our losses.
No, definitely. I think we're going to leave it there. We've run out of time, Brother Baha. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time. And as usual, South Africa, is backing the state of Palestine. In our thoughts and prayers, and in whatever way, our government can. It will assist. Will continue trying to put pressure in the United Nations, in the ICJ, and wherever we can. But for a message from our side, stay strong. And you in our thoughts, our prayers. Salaam alaikum.
Salam alaikum, and thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. That was Baha Hilo. They're painting a very, very bleak picture about what's currently happening in parts of Gaza. There, near two hospitals where those mass graves were found, and it's basically saying, why call for an investigation when all the truth is there, when all the names of all the soldiers that acted on this, that were part of this horrible murder, mass murder, so to say. All their names, all their details, all their ranks are there. Why call for an investigation when you can just call for accountability? We're going to leave it there. When we come back, we'll be looking at what's currently happening here in South Africa, back home, with regarding Eskom and them, finally getting that turnaround strategy right, or maybe using elections, to try and make sure that you guys continue voting for a certain party. Because, well, look, we have lights, and we've had lights for the past 30 days with no disturbance. All this and more after the break.